The Seattle Seahawks are interested in both Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon, but who should they actually pick up? What's up everyone, I'm Filoki, and today I'm going to give my thoughts on that exact topic. Before that though, I just wanted to thank everyone for all the support recently. We're over 2,100 subscribers on this channel, and we're almost at 100 on the second channel, so just thank you for all the support on both channels. And if you're not already subscribed to my second channel, go ahead and subscribe. You know, I'm not posting on it too much right now, but I do want to start posting on it a lot more, and I plan on it, so, you know, go ahead and subscribe to that if you want some more content. And one last thing before we get into the video, you've probably noticed this hat, and you know, I probably look pretty dumb. I'm not a big fan of hats, you know, I don't think I look good in hats, but you know, I was sent this for free from my college, so I decided why not just wear it. And this right here, new hoodie, you know, shout out to my sister for getting me this hoodie for my birthday. You know, it looks like a normal hoodie, but I'm going to cut to something right now. Boom, do you see that? Absolutely insane. It says my name on the back and 18 because I turned 18. It's for my 18th birthday, so big shout out to her. Go check her out if you want to go and show her some support. The link to all of her stuff is in the description. But now to get into the video, there's been interest shown from the Seattle Seahawks for both Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon, and today I wanted to give my thoughts on who I think would be the better option. Now, I've said this in multiple videos, but I kind of wanted to make a full video clearing this up. Recently, Antonio Brown was reinstated by the league, and it is now official that he'll have an 8-game suspension whenever he comes back if he does get signed to a team. And, you know, Josh Gordon, he's still waiting on his reinstatement decision to be made. But, you know, seeing that Antonio Brown only got an 8-game suspension for all the stuff he had on him, I really do think that Josh Gordon is going to be A-okay coming out of this. He'll be reinstated, and I think he'll probably have a very short suspension. Obviously, when it comes down to it, though, it's basically a consensus that Antonio Brown is the better player when you compare the two. He's been a superstar most of his career. He's been the #1 wide receiver on his team most of his career, and he's just been insanely good for the majority of his career. But I think that's the problem that I have with the signing of him to the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, there's a potential that he could be a great locker room guy. He could just come in and be super supportive. But, you know, I don't think he'll give up the ego that he has. I don't think he'll give up that #1 wide receiver spot. I don't think he'll give up his superstar status in the league. That's my problem with Antonio Brown currently, because obviously there's a chance that he can change, but when I'm just looking at it from the surface and I'm looking at him from basically how he's acted his whole career, he knows he's a superstar. He knows he's a great wide receiver, and he has the ego of a great superstar wide receiver. And I think if Seattle does sign him, you know, we have Tyler Lockett, we have DK Metcalf, we have very good wide receivers on our team still. You know, I think Antonio Brown would see himself as, hey, I'm the #1 wide receiver. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to be the #1 option. I'm going to get all the targets. I'm going to get all the stats. And, you know, I'm just, you know, that's a problem to me, because I think that that's how Antonio Brown probably would think if he was signed to Seattle. And I'm not a big fan of that. And I think Josh Gordon would actually be able to accept a lower role. Last year with the Seattle Seahawks, Josh Gordon played 5 games, started 1, and had a total of 136 snaps. Now, obviously, this isn't a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, or probably even wide receiver 3 option. You know, and I didn't see Josh Gordon complain once. In the post-game interviews, Josh Gordon could get 2 catches for like 30 yards, and he'd be like, man, I had a great time. I was playing with Russell Wilson, a great quarterback, and I had all these great players around me. And he was just always seeming like he was such a good guy. Obviously, he's been suspended like, what, 8 times now because of his drug abuse or whatever. But, you know, it doesn't matter about that, because I mean, obviously, there's a possibility he could be suspended for that again if he continues to do the whole thing, you know. But I think that as a locker room guy, he'd be much better than Antonio Brown. And I think when it comes down to it, having Josh Gordon get suspended after playing, you know, 8 games or something, he gets suspended for drug abuse. That's much less of a problem than Antonio Brown destroying the team's chemistry from the inside. And, you know, that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, there's a lot of people that see, you know, Josh Gordon getting suspended 8 times from marijuana abuse as a big problem. But I think Antonio Brown having a huge ego, coming in, probably wanting to be the #1 wide receiver on a team that clearly isn't going to make him a #1 wide receiver. I would much rather have Josh Gordon, in my opinion, because Josh Gordon last year played like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 type of snaps, and he was absolutely ecstatic in the post-game interviews. He said a lot of great things. I never heard one thing about him being a problem in the locker room, and I honestly am a much bigger fan of Josh Gordon than I am of Antonio Brown just as a person. On Monday, Pete Carroll said this about bringing back Josh Gordon. He said, really, it's not in our hands. Josh Gordon did a really good job with us last year. He fit in really well. He was a part of this team. By the way, we openly embrace him, and he's come through us. But also, by the way, he attacked it. So we are very open to that thought. We'll see what happens. I can't tell you what's going to happen on that. Now, obviously, Pete Carroll as the head coach doesn't make the final decision of bringing back Josh Gordon, but I think him saying this is a very good way to basically clear up the fact that Josh Gordon wasn't a problem in the locker room last year. And I mean, if he was, obviously Pete Carroll wouldn't be saying that he was a really good fit. He was a part of our team and he would be welcome to having him back, because no head coach wants to have a locker room problem on their team unless it's someone like, if someone like Patrick Mahomes was a locker room problem, well, he's absolutely amazing at football. He can basically carry your team by himself if he has to. So, if he's a locker room problem, okay, he's going to carry. But, Josh Gordon, if he was a locker room problem, Pete Carroll would not be talking highly of him. He would have been cut. He wouldn't be welcome to coming back. So honestly, Josh Gordon, this basically just ensures that he was a good player in the locker room, and he is a good player on the field when he is on the field. Obviously, he's had drug problems. He's been suspended a lot, but when he on the field and as a teammate, I believe Josh Gordon is a much better option than Antonio Brown, because on the field, I mean, Antonio Brown would be more talented, but I think Antonio Brown wouldn't be willing to accept anything less than a wide receiver one role. And I mean, obviously the Seahawks aren't going to be giving that to whatever wide receiver they sign out of these two, if they even sign either of them. Antonio Brown would definitely be a much better talent when it comes to just playing football, but the risk of, him being a problem in the locker room is just way too high for me, in my opinion. And I think Josh Gordon, obviously, there's a risk he plays like 4 games and gets suspended again. But Antonio Brown is just, there's a higher risk of Antonio Brown coming in, wanting to be a number 1 wide receiver, and basically demoralizing the entirety of the team. Obviously, there's a chance that being in such a good culture like the Seattle Seahawks around Russell Wilson, who's one of the most wholesome people in the entire world, that Antonio Brown might change for the better. He might become just a angel in the locker room. But, I think it's a much safer option to go with someone like Josh Gordon, who we saw play last year. He made some big plays. He made some very important plays. Obviously, he's a great player. He's just had problems with, being suspended for drug use. But he is a great player. In his sophomore season, he had like 1,600 yards in 14 games. He hasn't ever played a full season since his rookie year. But, I think he's still a good enough talent and a good enough person. Obviously, the drug issues are an issue because there's a chance that he doesn't play the entirety of the season. But, I'd rather take someone who's going to be a very good player on the field and a very good teammate that can possibly get suspended for drug abuse, even though marijuana, I believe, is not going to be a problem next year for the NFL. So honestly, I think that's a higher chance that he doesn't get suspended, because I think, I think Josh Gordon had more problems with marijuana than he did with PEDs. So, I think there's a lower chance of him getting suspended this year, and him being a great player and a great teammate is much more important than Antonio Brown being an amazing player and a possibly bad teammate. This video has basically just been me saying that Josh Gordon is a safer option than Antonio Brown, which I believe is probably something that most people agree on, but it's something that I believe wholeheartedly, and I just wanted to have a full video talking about it. Antonio Brown, the decision's already been made on his reinstatement, and Josh Gordon, he hasn't had his decision made yet. But if Antonio Brown's only getting 8 games for what I believe he had, burglary and battery, and he just gave himself up to that one, basically admitted he did it, and he also has a bunch of different allegations. He had a bunch of different legal problems. He had a bunch of on the field, off the field stunts that he was in problems with. He did a lot of stuff, and he only got 8 games. Josh Gordon, he's going to get like a slap on the wrist. I think because of his 6-game suspension last year, he's going to have to finish the last 2 games of it, I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's going to be a thing. But, if Antonio Brown is getting 8 weeks for basically being a criminal for the last year, I think Josh Gordon will be fine. I think he might get another week or 2 slapped onto it, so he'll probably have a 4-week suspension. And honestly, I think that Josh Gordon is a safer option. I think that is the option that the Seattle Seahawks will probably go with, because Pete Carroll seems like he really likes him. I mean, he was a good player on the field, never caused any problems in the locker room, and he said multiple times on social media that he wants to go back to the Seattle Seahawks. He's basically just been alluding to him like, hey, I want to return to Seattle, and Seattle has been alluding to, hey, we want to get Josh Gordon back. And I assume he won't be wanting a ton of money, because, I think Josh Gordon, he needs to continue to prove himself. I don't think he's going to want like $10 million for a 1-year deal. I think he'll probably get like a $5 million 1-year deal, and we'd be able to afford that easily with what we have. And I just, honestly, I'm a big fan of Josh Gordon. This is probably pretty biased. I'm not a big fan of Antonio Brown. He's just been a bigger problem off the field. And I'm a big fan of players who are, good people, like Russell Wilson. He's a great person and he's a great player. I think that, Josh Gordon, he's a good person. He's a good player. So I'm a much bigger fan of Josh Gordon than I am Antonio Brown. I watched Josh Gordon when he was on the Browns, and, he had some success. He had some very big problems with drug abuse. But I think that if he can, get that 4-week suspension, like I'm estimating that he'll be suspended for the first 4 weeks of the season, like a 2-game suspension along with the 2 games he already has to do. I think that'll be a 4-week suspension, half as long as Antonio Brown's. I think he probably won't get suspended this year because I don't think the NFL is going to be caring about marijuana. So I think Josh Gordon, he plays a full season other than those 4 games with the Seattle Seahawks, plays very well, is a very good teammate. He just comes in as a wide receiver 3, plays much better than any other wide receiver 3 possibly could have for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think, the Seattle Seahawks find a lot of success. Obviously, it's just basically adding to an already stacked receiving group. So I think that it would just be, it's a bit unnecessary, but it would definitely, help. Obviously, with Will Dissly, Greg Olsen, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Philip Dorsett, we really don't need to pick up Josh Gordon or Antonio Brown. But if Josh Gordon could take that wide receiver 3 spot from Philip Dorsett moves down to a 4, I think it's just an upgrade. It might be a little bit unnecessary, but it's an upgrade nonetheless. And I think that having Russell Wilson have another elite talent at wide receiver to throw to is just going to be another good thing. So, I think that if we can get Josh Gordon on a, not super expensive deal, which I don't think he's going to be asking for a super expensive deal, I think that I would be very open to bringing Josh Gordon back. Pete Carroll has said he's been open. I think a lot of fans are probably open to bringing Josh Gordon back. Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. A lot of people are a big fan of him. He seems to be a big fan of Seattle, and I'd be more than willing to have Josh Gordon back. And to answer the question that this video was asking, should the Seahawks sign Antonio Brown or Josh Gordon? 100% I believe Josh Gordon. Antonio Brown, he'll be the better player. He's a better talent. But Josh Gordon, much better in the locker room, and we already know what to expect from him. We expect him to be a good teammate. Pete Carroll has said that he was a great fit. He was a great teammate, stuff like that. And, I think he's a much safer option. And honestly, just the option that I would go with 100%. And with that, that's going to be the end of the video. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should we sign Antonio Brown or Josh Gordon when it comes down to it? I think Antonio Brown, like I said, better player. Josh Gordon, much safer of an option. Let me know in the comments what you think, though. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Like the video if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitch. I'll probably start streaming sometime next week and try to do consistently at least 2 times a week. And subscribe to the second channel. We're almost at 100 subscribers. Thank you all for all the support. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.